once again, it is time. The new year brings plenty of new things for the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And with that comes a brand new set, Phantom Nightmare. The first set of the new year and the first of many new things that are headed to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! With the coming of this new set, we are getting a number of new cards, some love to some old and continuing archetypes, as well as a whole brand new world premiere archetype, the Ashen. Yubel, a fan favorite and central to the story of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, makes a return in this set with some all-new support. There's plenty to be excited for in this new booster, with so many cool and favorite archetypes receiving support like Magispector, Goatee, and an archetype that I'm a personal fan of, RAIDRAPTORS. What's goody with you all today? My name is RayGVT, and today it's time to dive into the next core booster of Yu-Gi-Oh! In Phantom Nightmare. So without too much delay, let's take a look at some of the support that we're receiving from Phantom Nightmare, starting with the face of the set, Yubel. Let's get into it. So previously, Yubel was an archetype that was made up of only a few cards, including some Neos fusions, sort of. This was a dark attribute line of monsters made up of Yubel, Yubel Terra Incarnate, and Yubel the Ultimate Nightmare. The archetype centered around them having very powerful effects that prevented them from being destroyed by battle, and the controller not taking any battle damage when attacked, and instead having your opponent take all of that damage instead. These effects would get progressively stronger as the monsters changed, with some of the bigger monsters like Terra Incarnate and Ultimate Nightmare allowing you to destroy other monsters each turn and inflicting damage when destroying other monsters on the field. It was okay, but it wasn't great. The Neos fusions added a little something later on, but it wasn't fully realized as an archetype just yet, at least in my eyes. Until now, in standard Yu-Gi-Oh! Fashion that we've come to expect now, this booster is now giving some great support to a fan favorite archetype, making it a lot more playable and adding to the arsenal of some already pretty powerful cards that just needed an extra little something. So to start with the monsters, we have Yubel itself with Spirit of Yubel, a level 10 dark attribute monster that reads, cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, you take no battle damage from battles involving this card. If this card is destroyed, you can special summon one of your Yubel that is banished or in your hand, deck, or graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects of Spirit of Yubel once per turn. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned, you can take one spell or trap from your deck that mentions Yubel and either add it to your hand or set it to your field. Right away, this card is helpful by mentioning Yubel specifically on the card and allowing you to search and special out the original Yubel, which then has its own crazy effects. And when an attack is declared against you, you can just special this out from your hand, and when done so, you can search any spell or trap that mentions Yubel and add it to your hand or set it directly on the field. This is good legacy support. I've mentioned it before in previous set analysis videos, but adding something so simple by just mentioning the name of the card or archetype specifically on the new card does wonders for the old and existing archetype to become even more playable. Then coming in next, we have Samsara Regenerating Lotus. This is a level 1 dark attribute theme that reads, you can tribute this card, special summon one Yubel monster from your deck. During your opponent's turn, when a monster effect is activated while you control Yubel monster, quick effect, you can tribute this card. That effect becomes destroy one Yubel monster on the field. During your end phase, if you control Yubel and this card is in your graveyard, you can either add this card to your hand or special summon it. You can only use each effect of Samsara Regenerating Lotus once per turn. I like this card. So, by tributing itself, you can then summon Yubel directly from your deck. Simple enough. Then, during your main phase, when opponent's monster effect is activated, you can tribute this card and essentially force your opponent to destroy the Yubel that you already have on the field, which will then fire off a bunch of its effects, which will lead to some pretty crazy plays and interactions. I like this. It's playing into the archetype's strength by essentially forcing the effect from your opponent. And then during the end phase, if you control Yubel and it's in the grave, you can just add this card to your hand to help you again later, or special summon it right back. This is a good card that will be essential if you're planning on playing this archetype. And then to add on, we have Geist Grinder Golem. This is a level 8 dark fiend with the effect that reads, you can review one Yubel monster in your hand, special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field, then you can special summon this revealed monster to your field. Once per turn, if this card battles a Yubel monster, during damage calculation, your opponent gains 3,000 life points. If you special summon Yubel while this card is in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card to your opponent's field. By revealing a Yubel monster in your hand, you can special summon this card to your opponent's field, and then summon the revealed Yubel monster to your field. And because it's now on your opponent's field, it's meant to be attacked into. Doing this then gives your opponent 3000 life points, but because this card is meant to work with one of the spell cards that we'll go over, the interaction is a bit funny because your opponent actually ends up taking all battle damage that you would instead, as is the nature of Yubel, and this is because of that spell card again. We'll come back to this soon, but this is a very interesting one here. Switching scenes a little quick here, and to cap off our monsters, we have the new fusion boss monster and cover of our set, Yubel, the Loving Defender. This is a level 12 dark attribute fiend that requires one Yubel monster and one other effect monster on the field with the effect that reads: if this card is fusion summoned, you can inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each material used. You can only use this effect of Yubel, the Loving Defender, forever once per turn. Cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Also, you take no battle damage from battles involving this card. At the end of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that opponent's monster's attack, and if you do, banish that monster. This is the new big boss of the archetype, and I love it. It finally gives use to super polymerization by being a target for it, just like in the anime, which is something that we never could do originally with the archetype. It's got everything that you would expect from Yubel up to now, and makes it really hard to deal with and get off the field, especially if your opponent doesn't know what the archetype actually does. I think it looks pretty cool too, with a great design that just fits the theme and the set. There's a lot more to this archetype now that I think is looking really nice. I love this. So, with new monsters come new spells and traps to support, and we're getting a few but good cards here that really help this archetype be able to just run nicely. Let's take a look now. So up first, we have Nightmare Pain, the new primary spell of the archetype and the spell that works with Geist Grinder Golem. This is a continuous spell card that reads: during your main phase, you can destroy one dark monster in your hand or face-up field, and if you do, add one Yubel or one card that mentions it except Nightmare Pain from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Nightmare Pain once per turn. While you control a Yubel monster, or your opponent's monsters that can attack must attack a Yubel monster. Your opponent takes any battle damage that you would have taken from battles involving your Yubel monsters instead. Its first effect is good by simply allowing you to destroy a dark monster in your hand or face up on the field, because Yubel is one of them archetypes that wants to be destroyed all the time. And searching a Yubel by doing so also helps a lot too. Its second effect though is where things really get turning. So this card forces all your opponent's monsters to battle a Yubel monster on your side. Your opponent takes any battle damage that you would have taken involving battles with Yubel. So by having Geist Grinder Golem on your opponent's field because of its effect, that 3000 life points that your opponent gains doesn't really matter because they're going to be taking hella damage anyway with the use of this card. I really like what this is adding to the archetype, because if you can play to the strengths of this archetype by forcing your opponent to do the very thing that they don't want to do against this deck, then you're put in an advantage. And with the cards that we're getting in here already, this helps a lot. I'll talk more about this afterwards, but this is good. Then, coming up next, we have Mature Chronicle. This is another continuous spell card that reads: each time a Yubel monster or monsters that mentions Yubel is special summoned, place one Chronicle counter on this card. You can remove up to 5 Chronicle counters from your field to activate one of these effects. 1. Special summon one Yubel from your graveyard. 2. Add one of your banished cards to your hand. 3. Banish one card from your deck. 4. Destroy one card on the field. 5. Add one super polymerization from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Mature Chronicle once per turn. Very simple. You add counters every time a Yubel monster is special summoned, which is easy, and then remove them according to how many you have or your situation. All of the corresponding effects are all very useful to help you continue on with your plays. Things like summoning Yubel back from grave, banishing a card from your deck, or add a banished card back to your hand, and the 5th effect even lets you search super polymerization directly from your deck to your hand, which is extra useful. This will be a nice card to utilize as well if you want to play this deck. And coming in last, we have Eternal Favorite. This is a continuous trap card that reads: once per turn, you can activate one of these effects, but you can only use each effect of Eternal Favorite once per turn. 1. Special summon one of your Yubel monsters that is banished or in your graveyard. Neither player can activate cards or effects when when that monster is special summoned. 2. If you control Yubel, discard one card and send this face-up card from your spell and trap zone to the graveyard. Fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from either field as material, including a Yubel monster. So the effect is nice by just letting you special summon a banished Yubel monster or one that's in your grave. It does lock both players out of activating effects though, which is whatever. But its second effect is the real useful one, because this is how you're going to be able to cheat out the new Yubel fusion monster, Loving Defender. Very simple, very neat. And with that, we have yet another wave of legacy support done for a fan favorite archetype. I think that what these cards add to the already existing cards of the archetype are great and make them a lot more playable than what they were already by just simplifying them a lot in what they do and how you can summon the Yubel monsters. Directly mentioning the archetype name on cards goes a long way for adding good legacy support to existing archetypes, and as I mentioned before, this is one of them archetypes that loves destruction and wants to be destroyed, because then that's where all the effects kick in and stuff. It's great, and having cards that force your opponent into doing just that helps you out so much more. It's a good wave of support, and for anyone that's looking to play this, you now have everything that you need to make a solid Yubel deck, and with hopefully more support to come in the future. I personally have never been the biggest Yubel fan, mainly the actual deck itself, but the anime is a different story. They did good here, but with the new set, we're receiving a lot more than just this. The next biggest thing in this set and what people are looking forward to is the new world premiere archetype, the Ashened. Appropriately dubbed the Dark Souls archetype by the community, this is an archetype that centers around Vados, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction, which is the card that's central to the lore of this archetype. This is a card that can be special summoned to your opponent's field by targeting one field spell and then destroys that card. After doing so, you can add or set one Ashen continuous trap from your deck. But even though it's on your opponent's field, it's not going to be something that your opponent will be happy to have, because once this card is sent from your opponent's field and back to your grave, you can destroy all monsters on the field. The Ashen also have their own field spell in Obsidian, the Ashen City, which is central to the archetype as well. The archetype also features a number of different monsters such as King, Hero, and Priestess of the Ashen City. All of these monsters can be special summoned directly from your hand as long as the field spell is in play. These three monsters all have really useful effects which are designed to work directly with each other, as well as improve while Vados is on your opponent's side of the field. And because they're all pyro monsters, the field spell lets you go further by changing all monsters your opponent controls to pyro as well, which then allows them to do even more. They also have a nice set of spells and traps outside the useful field spell, and because these are pyro monsters, they'll work well with Bonfire, the most recent hot card from Maze of Millennia, which you definitely have, right? This is a really cool looking archetype that's showing a lot of promise, and with further support down the line, I'm eager to see how it shapes up. Other archetypes are also receiving some support, with Goatee receiving a set of cards that's gonna make it much easier to synchro summon their big space fish monsters. I'm a fan of Goatee, honestly. Sure, it wasn't the best at release, but you can say that about a lot of archetypes at release. But it's shaped up to be a pretty solid archetype and makes for a pretty fun deck. Magispector is another archetype receiving a number of cards in the set that will absolutely help it turn up a level. And the brand new RAIDRAPTOR cards are hitting us in this set, which I'm personally very excited for. As someone that's become a fan of this archetype more and more in recent years, I'm looking forward to seeing these so I can build on what I already have. The new rank up spell adds to RAIDRAPTOR's already impressive arsenal of rank up cards, and the new Xyz card, Brave Streaks, is a very nice upgrade from the existing Force Streaks. By detaching one material, you can set a RAIDRAPTOR spell or trap directly from your deck. And if this card has a winged beast monster as material, you can detach one material to add one rank up spell from your deck to your hand. But it doesn't stop there, as we have the all new big boss RAIDRAPTOR monster with RAIDRAPTOR Rising Rebellion Falcon. Such a cool name with a cool effect to match. It's unaffected by other card effects to start off, and if this card is Xyz summoned, you can destroy as many cards your opponent controls as possible, and then If this card has 3 or more Raidraptor Xyz monsters with different names as material, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the combined original attack of the destroyed monsters. It can also copy the effect of any Raidraptor Xyz monster in your grave by detaching 3 materials from the card. This card is absolutely insane and I love it. It looks so cool, and it's more than a worthy card to add to the already impressive and powerful arsenal that Raidraptors hold already. It's one of the few rank 13s in the game, and it's very worthy of being one. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm more excited for the Raidraptor support in this set way more than anything. I can't wait. And lastly, to round it off, this is the set that we're receiving the new Promethean Princess, Bestower of Flames. A card that was originally introduced in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel exclusively, but we can now get our hands on the physical card with this set. The amount of fire decks that are getting support and running around in the game now, this is going to be a card that any and all fire style duelists are going to want to get. Phantom Nightmare will be hitting our shelves not too long from now, so be sure to grab any cards that you may need to build the decks that you want now or as soon as you can. I'm already all set with the Raidraptor support, so I'm also looking forward to the new Ashen cards, and heck, I might even give Yubel a proper try now. What is it that you guys are most excited for in this set? Let me know, and I'll see you guys around for the release. Till then, I'll catch you guys next time in the duel arena.